What's up everyone, Andrew Bainey here, and on today's video we are going to be taking a look at the GTRS intelligent guitar powered by MOOER Audio. So if you're unfamiliar with MOOER, they're basically a company that makes a bunch of awesome multi-effects pedals and a ton of other stuff as well. But yeah, it's basically a brand new guitar brand powered by MOOER, and the coolest thing about this guitar is this little guy right here, which you can see changes color when you touch it. So this is called the Super Knob, and we're going to talk a lot more about that very soon. But what you need to know first is that all of the guitar tones you're about to hear are coming directly from this guitar. So this guitar is going to be plugged straight into my interface, no plugins, no nothing. So first and foremost, I always like to show you a full demo mix. So I'm going to show you guys that first, and then we're going to talk about the specs of the instrument as well as all of the technology that MOOER has packed into this guy. So with that being said, this is how the guitar sounds in a full demo mix. Okay, so now that you've heard how this guitar sounds in a full demo mix, we're going to talk more about the specs and features of this instrument, as well as where to get it and all that good stuff. So first and foremost, like I said in the beginning of this video, this is the GTRS intelligent guitar. It's currently over on Indiegogo, and you can get it now for, I believe, $510 US for the guitar and a gig bag, or if you want to add in an extra $40, you get this fancy wireless controller right here. So as you can see, it is completely wireless, all run by Bluetooth and battery powered, and you can change your tone like that. No, like that. Yeah, and you can see on the Super Knob down, oh my god, down there, it changes color accordingly. Pretty cool. But before we get too ahead of ourselves, let's talk about the most basic form of the instrument, which is the guitar itself. So let's ignore all of the cool technology for a sec and talk about what you actually get in terms of the guitar. Okay, so for the guitar itself, I have the one in the shell pink finish, but it's also available in 3 other colors. I'm actually pretty happy they sent the pink one over. They didn't ask me what I wanted, they just sent one, and I like it. Pink is cool. So as for the specs of this instrument, this has a roasted maple bolt-on neck with a rosewood fretboard. It has 22 frets and a 25.5-inch scale length. It also has some vintage style tuners. They just look like some generic tuners that look kind of like old school Strat tuners. The body is made out of American basswood. It has a poly finish, like I said in the intro. It also comes in a few different colors such as vintage white, shell pink, which is what we got here, surf green, and sonic blue. It has GTRS's proprietary pickups, which are kind of interesting for a few reasons, which we'll talk about when we get onto the tech that's included, but just bear that in mind. These are proprietary pickups. As for controls, we got a volume, a tone, and that Super Knob, which, you know, again, we'll get to that very soon because there's a lot to cover. It also comes with a gig bag, a tremolo arm, 2-point trem system, and it is USB rechargeable, which you can see right there. It's actually a magnetic USB charger, which is even cooler in my opinion. And I think the only other thing is it also has a 5-way pickup selector. I think that's pretty much it for the specs of this instrument. But the main selling point, of course, isn't necessarily the guitar specs, but it's the technology that's included in the guitar. With that being said, this guitar does feel pretty solid for the most part. You know, there's everything you could ask for in a $500-ish guitar, being there's no sharp fret ends, always good. Roasted maple, cool extra feature, which somehow guitars are doing at a cheaper price point now. Not sure how guitar companies are doing that, but it's always cool to see. Big fan of the satin neck, always a plus. Hate gloss necks, so it's nice to see that there. Yeah, the guitar itself actually feels pretty solid for the most part. The neck is a little bit on the chunkier side. Of course, it's made to be more of like a traditional Strat, so that makes sense. I'm used to a bit thinner of a neck on the more modern guitars, if you will, but no big deal. The vintage tuners are fine. I mean, they're just generic tuners. I definitely would have liked to see some locking tuners because I like locking tuners on everything. As for everything else, it feels pretty solid. Pickups sound pretty good. And yeah, that's pretty much it for the actual guitar. But again, let's move on to the tech because that is where things get very interesting. So as I keep alluding to, the super knob over here one more time is a big black knob that's located at the very bottom of this guitar and does a ton of cool things. In addition to being a nice looking light like that, it also does a bunch of stuff. So first and foremost, the reason why it changes lights when you click it is actually because that's how you cycle through presets. So again, as I mentioned in the beginning of this video, all of the guitar tones that I was using for that demo track were coming directly out of this guitar. And the reason that is happening is because of this intelligent guitar system that's included right here at the base of the guitar. So basically, this guitar has a built-in DSP processor, which was invented by MOOER using their effects and amplifier models that they've used in their other multi-effects pedals, but instead they just built it literally into the guitar. So you go out of this guitar and straight into headphones or an interface, and your guitar makes your tone for you, essentially. Or rather, you make your tone and your guitar outputs it. You don't need to plug it into another device or into a plugin. It's all coming out of here, and that is very cool. So I believe there are 126 different effects / amp models that are built into this device. Again, as I just mentioned, they are based off of algorithms that MOOER has already made for their other multi-effect pedal units. So they actually sound pretty good. I think the one that I was using in the demo clip was, you guessed it, a 5150 type thing, because that's always what I go for. And then of course there are a ton of other effects which I didn't use in that intro clip, but I'll show a few of them real quick in just a second. The other thing to mention is that the battery should last about 10 hours with continuous use, apparently. And last but not least is it is all controllable by the GTRS app. So just through Bluetooth, going straight to your phone, that's how you control all of your tone settings. In addition to the actual tone features, it has a few extra functions, which I won't necessarily touch on in this video, but just to mention them really quick, it has things such as a tuner, a metronome, a drum machine, a looper, a chord chart. I think that's everything, but honestly, I feel like every time I open this app, there's something more that I haven't tried yet, which is very cool. So now that we got the technical specs out of the way and the even more technical specs of the actual intelligent processor out of the way, we're going to move on to showing how the app actually works and what this guitar can do. Okay, so we switched camera angles real quick. We're going to go through the app and show off some of the tones you can get with the GTRS. So as I was mentioning earlier, all of the tones are controlled on this fancy little app here. So when you're on your home screen, you'll see basically a picture of your guitar, as you can clearly see here. And we got a couple different options here. So first and foremost, you can see that right now the pickup is selected on the screen, and you can see when I switch the pickup on the guitar, it switches on the screen as well, showing you which position you're in. Now the other cool thing here is you'll notice when I'm on the bridge pickup, it says JP, whereas every other pickup says GTRS original tone. And the reason it's doing that is because you can actually switch what your pickup's DI output sounds like. So I currently have my bridge pickup on this setup basically set up to sound kind of like an Ernie Ball JP type guitar. So if you basically just click that, you can switch what your pickup sounds like using the tone capture. So you can see I'm on position 1, and I can switch what I want my pickups to sound like. So there's currently 9 options. I have it on JP, but let's say we want to switch it back to the GTRS original tone, which is the stock tone, obviously. And that'll switch how your pickup sounds. Pretty cool. Switch back. As you can see, it's a little bit of a subtle difference, especially when you're using a high gain rhythm tone, but nonetheless still a very cool feature. You can also adjust the parameters of each different pickup or tone capture if you want. There's a bunch of different options. You know, you got bass, gain, mid shift, mid, and treble, and you can also adjust those accordingly if you don't quite like how the preset sounds. And in addition to that, you can have your tone set up so that each pickup position has a different type of pickup. So if you want your bridge to be your JP, your bridge and middle to be the original tone, and you want your middle pickup to be, let's say, like a Shure Classic, right? So you can save all of this so that this preset bank, which for me is 0D, you can see on the top there, modern high gain edit is what I called my tone. You can basically have it so that each pickup position by default is set to a different tone capture, which is very, very cool. Okay, so that's a really quick overview of the tone capture settings. Again, that's basically modeling your pickup. But the other cooler part, in my opinion, is if you click on the super knob down here, this basically brings up your actual tone presets. So as you can see here, my tone preset is modern high gain edit. Of course, this is basically just a 5150 with some pretty standard settings. So if you go through here, starting at the beginning of the chain, we can see the first thing in my chain is a dynamic noise gate, and G stands for noise gate. I have the threshold all the way up. Then we go next, overdrive boost. Of course, this is sort of like a tube screamer type situation. So I got the gain at 0, tone at 100, volume at 100. Next up, we got the amp, which is an EV 5050, obviously 5150 type thing. Again, you can see all the settings on the bottom here and adjust them accordingly if you want. And last but not least, in my chain, I have a cab as well. Again, I just use the matching 5050 412. It's hard to say 5050 instead of 5150. And of course, if you want to change any of these, you simply click on the block. So go amp, and we want to change, instead of a 5050, just click that, and you can scroll through all the different amps that are included, for example. So let's say we want to try a power bell, which I'm going to assume is like an Engel power ball, probably. And obviously that's not sounding quite how I'd imagine, so let's like boost the bass a bunch, boost the mids a bunch, take the gain down. So it's as easy as that to play around with your tone settings. I'm gonna switch it back to, what else should we try here? Let's use a tri-rec, so obviously triple rectifier type situation. And same goes for all the other settings. So again, if we want to play around with the overdrive or boost section, if we want to change that to something else, we can go 808. So that's going to be more like the Ibanez Tube Screamer, sorry, the Ibanez 808 Tube Screamer. So let's do the typical Tube Screamer settings. Everything at 100. Oop. There we go. Everything at 100 except for the gain. And then we go back to the amp. Let's switch that back to the 5050 because that's always the one that I like the most. And of course, same thing, if we don't like this cab, we can choose the EVH 5050 instead of the PV. Of course, you can also, switch presets again by using the super knob right here or the included foot switch if you choose to get that. So obviously we're on D right now, but let's say we want to go to A. You can see that the tone preset switches to butter, and now it's going to sound completely different once again. Of course, way different type of a tone. And again, if you want to switch up how that sounds, let's say we click on that super knob and change it out all over again. So again, you want to change the amp type, you got that right there, cab type right there. This time around it's got some delay, same thing, you can change the type of effect. So again, this is an analog delay, but they got real echo, tape, mod, reverse, digital, all the different options for dynamic delays. We got reverb, we got modulation, which would be like phaser, flanger, etc. Yeah, so tons of effects and features in this app. The only thing I will say is, obviously there's not really a way they could have done this, but I wish that there was some way to have a stereo output from the guitar, because especially for effects such as reverb and delay, those just sound so much better in stereo. But I mean, I really don't know how they would have done that with this guitar, so fair enough. But it would have been nice to see, maybe in a future guitar. One other thing that I did want to note really quickly as well is that there is a little bit of a lag when you switch presets, just so you guys are aware. So that's something to note if you're planning on using this guitar live. Yes, it works in the way as advertised, but there is a tiny bit of a delay between patch changes. Just the unfortunate reality of the situation. Maybe in a future update they can make it switch a bit faster or something like that, but something to bear in mind at this point in time. I think the only other thing I wanted to mention really quickly with the app was that there are a lot of other features. So you can see if you bring up the settings, you got that tuner, drum, chord chart, mixer, looper, standby mode, and a few other things. So if you go to the drums, for example, and you want to do a metronome at 120 BPM, there you go. And again, that's coming out of the same output that the guitar is coming through. So if you want to play over top of that. You get the point. And same thing for the drum machine. You just switch it to drum mode, and instead of having an annoying click, you got a drum instead. And of course, you can switch the BPM and all that good stuff. And the last thing I wanted to mention is also, of course, the tone cloud, which of course means that if you create a preset that you like, you can of course upload that to MOOER's service, and you can also download presets from tons of other people by just clicking your profile, I believe. And you can see the one that I've downloaded here, which is a solo preset. I didn't end up using it, but it was just to test this out. Yeah, and then you can also go to the cloud, and this is where you'll basically see all of the tones uploaded by everyone, which there are a ton of options. And they're of course organized by clean, low gain, or high gain. So yeah, that's pretty basic. And then if you want to try out someone's tone, like let's try this Chris drop C+, right? Give it a go. Okay. So now we'll be trying out Chris's tone. So just like that, pretty easy to download tones and get them directly onto your guitar. So that's pretty much all I wanted to cover for this section, so we'll switch back to the other camera angle right now. Okay, that's gonna do it for this video. Once again, big thank you to MOOER and GTRS for sending me over this guitar to do a video on. If you guys are interested in getting one of these for yourself, again, that introductory pricing is $510 USD on their Indiegogo. If there's any left at this point in time, I think when I was shooting this video, there were like 4 or 6 left, so they're probably gone by now. But go check out the link in the description or the pinned comment anyways, if you're interested in learning more or for snagging one yourself. Last but not least, of course, I want to give a big thank you to all my Patreon members whose names are on the screen at this point in time. If you are interested in audio downloads, guitar tabs, stems, or a shout out on the screen, you can find all of that over on my Patreon page. Thank you all so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you next time.